Good morning, everyone, and welcome into Wake and Take. It's your boy Jason, and we have some football to talk about today. It's Friday, so last night we had it was a football game. We could certainly call it a football game that happened between the Broncos and the Chiefs. Plus, since Friday's the last show of the Wake and Take week, we have to preview Sunday's games. It's going to be fun. It's going to be awesome. I've also got a very special guest joining me. So why don't we sit back, relax, sip our coffee, and enjoy the show. Ladies and gentlemen, I am joined with the man himself, the great Alan Seslowsky. You've seen him on Sonic Truth. You see him on the RotoWire podcast. You see him on the SiriusXM airwaves all over, on all sorts of other shows. You see Alan everywhere. He's doing great stuff. Alan, how you doing?
But my favorite show to be seen on is the Jason Wake and Take show. As you know, I'm a everyday listener, so I'm doing this as a passion appearance. I love it here. I love what you do. I hate reading. I've always hated reading, and I love listening to what went on the day before. So let's to be part of it, man. You're easy to work with. I love hanging with you, my friend. In fact, I told you when you were on the RotoWire podcast, somehow that ended up being our most downloaded episode of the season. Not Podfather when he came on, not Theo Greminger when he came on, not, we've had all these great guests that have been doing it for decades, and then Jason comes on, ends up being our most downloaded podcast of the summer. You got some magic, my friend. I just want to ride your coattails a little bit here.
You told me that, and I'm still just blown away. The fact that you even listen to the show blows me away. I love what you do, of course, on the Sonic Truth, but your other shows as well. I mean, it is just great to hear, man. I'm glad that I'm on the right path, and I'm glad that you also appreciate me.
Yeah, don't screw this episode up, okay?
Anyway, about to screw this episode up. We'll see how this goes. I try to share my screen every episode, and as everyone listening should know, or is about to know, there were some fireworks last night from the great Steve Smith Sr., so I kind of want to play this video. Then we can talk about it a little bit.
To him, and he got a different reaction.
I called out to him because on my podcast, Cut To It, I just talked about guys that maybe have not showed up in a way or in a manner. And so the word that I've used to describe him in the past was a jag, just a guy. Just a guy. And so when I saw him, he's playing well. I wanted to say to him face to face, like, hey, I know I said some things in the past I probably shouldn't have, and I'm sorry. That's what I wanted to say to him. His response, Mike Robb and Bucky, was ninja.
Ninja?
Yes, I'm using the word ninja. I'm just using the word ninja. I don't mess with you. And it was a curse word. And so I was like, all right. And then he repeated it. So I'll say it again. I'm sorry that I said you were a jag, just a guy who's an average wide receiver that you use a first-round pick on that isn't doing anything. I hope today that you actually show up in a way that you haven't showed up in the last couple of years since they drafted you. So if you ever got a problem with Agent 89, I'm sorry for saying that you're an average wide receiver that they eventually will move on. And when teams called me and asking, should they trade for you? I would say no, don't trade for Jerry Jeudy because he's mentally unable to handle constructive criticism from people who watch specifically, can he be a wide receiver? He could be a wide receiver. He's a tier 3. Go back into the studio.
Wow.
All I know when I watch that is I need to get Steve Smith on Wake and Take. What a firework he could bring here. But Alan, when you saw that video, how did it make you feel?
Who's the guy that's with Steve Smith in that interview? What's his name? Do you know what that interviewer's name is?
It's Mike something, I think.
Right, Garafolo, right, or something.
Yes.
Yeah, my favorite part is Mike Garafolo going like total like every comedian that makes fun of like white people, like, hey, how you doing? I'm like, ninja, what's that? Like, like that was the best part of the whole video. Now, going back to Steve Smith has always been a firecracker, and it's like it's funny because what he said wasn't even anything that crazy. Like he was basically saying Jerry Jeudy has been average and he hasn't performed like a first-round pick, and he's right. He wasn't calling him a bust. He was just saying that he's failed to meet expectations. And what do you do? I mean, I guess when I was 24, I was probably a little hot under the collar too. But the correct answer, if you're Jerry Jeudy, is saying, you know what, Steve Smith, he's an all-timer. He's right. I need to play better, but it didn't go that way. And Steve Smith, were you watching football, 8 years ago? Yeah, okay, yeah. So but anyone that knows Steve Smith, man, this guy, he's like a small guy that just like is a bulldog. So he was reserved and calm there. So I thought it was fair criticism. It was great. Steve Smith's a great entertainer. This is a viral clip. It's only going to up Steve Smith's profile. And Jerry Jeudy comes out looking like the stinker here. And you know what? Everything Steve Smith said last night kind of came true.
Yeah, it did. And I mean, I saw it go even a little bit further. There was another clip later where Jerry Jeudy was just kind of hanging around dancing behind Steve Smith, really trying to taunt him and everything.
It was cringe.
It's pretty cringe.
Yeah. It was cringe. And by the way, Jerry Judy's best play last night, Jason, was the tackle he made on Russell Wilson's interception.
Which one, Alan? Which interception? Russell Wilson.
You know what I'm talking about, that first one, right? Because it was a nice tackle. Maybe Jerry Jeudy can convert the cornerback.
Hey, special teams has a use for players like Jerry Jeudy. I like what you brought up about the whole ninja point, because when I watched this, it kind of reminded me of back in the day, the old Kanye West and Michael Mayer, whatever, it doesn't matter. Michael Mayer, that video. He's talking about George Bush, and Michael Myers just sitting there like...
No, it's funny when, and Steve Smith was, he didn't really need to have that part of the story, but now that's like one of the best parts of the video. This is an all-timer. This is Bart Scott saying, this is Joe Namath saying, I'm going to kiss you to, I forget the female broadcaster. To me, this is Mount Rushmore social media clip right here, because it's got all the uncomfortable elements to it. Everyone loves Steve Smith. This is fantastic. And it's going to be talked about for years to come.
It is, and it couldn't have been more perfect. I shared the show sheet with you yesterday before the game, and we had already, of course, planned to talk about Jerry Jeudy, and it has not only provided an entertaining segue, but a fantastic segue. Jerry Jeudy, the rumors of him being traded are back in full swing all offseason. That was one of the hottest topics, is that a Broncos wide receiver would be moved. Reports are coming out that he's supposed to be moved before the trade deadline, and it is basically set in stone. Even some NFC executives have come out and said that they've had some internal discussions, which is interesting given that's the other conference that he's going to. Alan, I wanted to ask you this. Where do you think he's going?
Would you want him on your team after last night, right? So Steve Smith basically was saying, right, because he's a legendary Panther, and I think that the most common place that we had him earmarked for was the Panthers. But it sounds like that Steve Smith was inferring that the Panthers organization is asking him, what do you think of this guy? Like, they trust him in that organization. And then it sounds like that Steve Smith saying that this guy is soft, right? Mm-hmm. So whereas I would have agreed that the Panthers would be the most likely landing spot, I'm not so sure that is after this little spectacle last night.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. As Steve Smith said in the clip, if a team calls, I'm going to tell them not to bring him in. And I would guarantee that the Carolina Panthers are calling Steve Smith, given what he's done for that franchise, how good he was for them, the position he plays, how spot on he's been with analysis. One of the only guys on Cooper Kupp before Cooper Kupp broke out. He's a very, very good scout. So his opinion holds a lot of weight. I do still think he'll be moved, though. So let's move away from the Panthers. Is there another team that you think could potentially be interested here?
Well, we saw again last night in this game, the only one that has a pulse is Mr. Pfizer, right? Kelsey, 9 for 9 for 130 plus. After that, Rashee Rice is there. Look, let's go back. They let Tyreek Hill basically walk out the door. They got some picks for him. And they won the Super Bowl. So everyone assumes they don't need the wide receiver to win the championship. They've already won a championship. But what we saw when Kelsey's knee buckled a little bit last week, that had to stop. That had to wake them up that they might need a player, right? Marquez Valdes-Scantling is a 0, right? Sky Moore is just not coming through. Rashee Rice looks good, but it's he's still a rookie. I still think that even the Chiefs are in play here. Now everyone will automatically say they're not going to trade in division. Right. I never understood that. If you think a guy is good, don't trade him. And if you don't want him on your team anymore, definitely trade him in your division. So I think the Chiefs are going to be interested, especially since their pick projects to be at the end of the round. So Jerry Jeudy's on that last year of his contract. It's more of a rental. I wouldn't be surprised if somebody pays a late third-round pick and then maybe like gets Jeudy and a fifth-rounder back. I don't know exactly what the price will be, but Chiefs, even though that would be I have a couple other ideas, but that's the one that I think that after last night, you could easily see that needs a wide receiver, even if it's not Jeudy.
Yeah, no, I love that spot a lot. And we've talked about kind of teams that need wide receivers all off season too. I think the Bills could be another one, as well as, yes, Gabe Davis has been getting the volume and is coming off another Gabe Davis boom week, but they could definitely use someone outside of Stephon Diggs. I think that could be a fun one. And I mean, we'll see if the Panthers happen for sure. Let's put a fantasy football spin on this before moving on. Would you be trying to target Jerry Jeudy in, let's say, dynasty leagues before or after this trade goes through?
Yeah, I love Jerry Jeudy coming out. I was taking him over CD Lamb incorrectly in a lot of drafts. So I unloaded. I think if he hasn't really broken out, and actually that's not 100% true, because the last 5 games of last season, he was like a top 5 wide receiver, which is why I thought he was going to break out. So if you were the type of fantasy player, Jason, that likes to run into a burning building, and I think that's a good strategy, Jerry Judy's never been cheaper. Like, for example, what if I offer, like, would you take Tank Dell for him right now, or would you rather have Jerry Jeudy?
I might actually rather have Tank Dell, which I think is crazy to say.
Right. So if you want Jeudy and you have someone like Dell on your roster, you can get him, because I think most people will agree with that. So that's how you buy low on a player that's a former first-round pick that could get an upgraded situation.
Yeah, I'm definitely trying to buy Jerry Jeudy right now. I mean, sometimes new situations are what's needed for a wide receiver to break out. And I mean, you mentioned last season, he looked good. He still had almost 1,000 yards on that Denver Broncos offense that was putrid last season, like beyond putrid. It was awful trying to watch them play football. And Jerry Jeudy had a okay season. So I do think that better days are ahead from him. Go ahead and try to buy him now, and probably still try to buy him after, especially if he doesn't go for a lot of draft capital. Like if he goes for a 3rd, 4th round pick, then I mean, that shows that NFL teams don't really value him that much, which means you should be able to get him maybe even a little cheaper.
Let me give you another one. Let's say that, like, you're sitting there and you have Deontay Johnson on your roster. Which one of those players would you rather have? Deontay's been out the whole year.
Right.
He's projected to come back after the bye. Would you rather have a 27-year-old Deontay Johnson on your roster, or would you rather take Jerry Jeudy? Let's assume Panthers for a second, okay? Let's just say that's the spot.
Yeah.
Which one of those guys would you rather have?
For me, I'd rather have Jeudy, but I do definitely think that you could get that deal done. The people love Deontay Johnson. I've never figured out what it is, why people love Deontay Johnson so much. I think he's good at football and a solid option, but he doesn't have as much ceiling as a young former first-round pick from Alabama that Jerry Jeudy has.
Fair enough.
Yeah. All right, well, let's go ahead and move on. We talked a little bit about Thursday Night Football. Let's just give a couple takeaways here. It was a stinker of a game, 19-8. Which I saw was the first time that score has happened since I believe it was the 30s, but almost 100 years since that score has happened in a football game, not even in the Super Bowl era. We call that a scoregami here. Alan, you watched this game. You talked about the Chiefs wide receivers a little bit. Is that your takeaway, or do you have something else when you watch this game?
Yeah, I mean, Rashee Rice was literally the only wide receiver to look like he had a pulse. I think that is interesting. I think the dynasty buy window is once again open for Patrick Mahomes. This happens every once in a while. Okay, like beginning in dynasty startup season, you couldn't touch Patrick Mahomes. Mm-hmm. He's QB 7 or 8 on the season, something like that, and he's having a down year, but he's got this tremendous floor, which is why. Now, again, I'm not saying you're going to get him cheap. You're not going to get him cheap. It's just sometimes the store owner of Patrick Mahomes opens the lock, and he had another modest game. So if you have, Joe Burrow, if you have Anthony Richardson, even though he's injured, this is an opportunity to add to it to get up to the Patrick Mahomes level. If you believe in him, which, I mean, why wouldn't you? There's going to be other quarterbacks, maybe presumably for the rest of the 2 years that finish ahead of him. But you like Patrick Mahomes in your dynasty leagues because of the longevity in the floor. So that's another takeaway, is that this is a down season, and you have to take advantage of that in fantasy football.
Yeah, I love that call. The other show I do here for Player Profiler is the Trade Gods with Maddie Kiwoom. And we discuss that very idea all the time. And especially on this week's episode, we talked about you can now finally buy Justin Jefferson. It's not that the price has changed, but he's become obtainable. And sometimes that's all it takes to get these superstars. It's just the fact that they're even on the trade block in general is a massive sign and a really good option. So, yeah, I love the call of trying to buy Patrick Mahomes. The points haven't quite been there yet. They've only had one game over 30 points this season and just only put up 19 against the Broncos where, I mean, they were allowed 70 to the Dolphins, right? I mean, they've been terrible.
Two other takeaways. I'll just be quick with them from last night's game, and I'm curious what you gleaned. I mean, Isaiah Pacheco is a workhorse, right? I mean, that's not surprising to anyone that watches your show, but he started slow. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, I mean, that's, that ship has sailed. That's like kind of like a running joke in Dynasty in the player profiler world. I mean, nobody has him that watches your network. And but I mean, a true workhorse. I mean, if we redrafted today in our redraft leagues, Isaiah Pacheco would probably go in the second round. I mean, he was going in the 7th and 8th round of redraft. I mean, he is locked in. Jerick McKinnon is kind of relegated to like the modest pass catching role. And then on the other side, the running backs, true three-headed committee, right? You cannot touch any of these guys. I wouldn't drop Jaleel McLaughlin because I liked what I saw with him. And P. Ryan only had, 2 touches? One of them was the game-sealing fumble. So if we can get this thing to a two-headed committee, I still think there's fantasy upside for Javonte and Jaleel.
Yeah, definitely. I think they both passed the eye test too. It's cool to see Javonte Williams even play football week 1 coming off his injury, but then to come off of missing last week with an injury and come back and look okay. I mean, no one on the Broncos really looked that great yesterday, but and I do think P. Ryan left with an injury. The severity of it, of course, hasn't come out. It's only Friday morning, but if that turns into something where he's missing a few weeks, I do like that backfield. I do think that McLaughlin and Williams could be a very good 1-2 punch. My big takeaway, though, is, and I've talked about it probably too much on this show, especially this season, is that I don't like any of the Chiefs wide receivers. I'm not starting any of them. I'm selling every single one. However, after last night, Rashee Rice looks really, really good. And I do think that ceiling is there now. I had been a little bit reticent to call it, but I think after watching this game, seeing the explosion after the catch, he had 2 catches where he caught it in traffic, looked very explosive after. He looks big too. I mean, watching him run, he looks bigger than some of the corners and linebackers that he's running past. So past the eye test for me. Might be trying to buy Rashee Rice before he has a ceiling game. I know he's had a couple touchdowns already, but I don't even know if he scored over 10 points since week 1. So,
let me ask you this, Jason. If you're in a dynasty or keeper league and at pick 1-7 in your rookie draft, you took Quentin Johnson, would you offer him straight up for Rashee Rice at this point?
Yeah, I think I would. It's a very good question and still kind of close. I mean, this week is a huge test for Quentin Johnston. A lot of people have been saying, well, you can't write off QJ yet. He was, a lot of times rookies don't get bumped up until after the bye week. They re-game plan, they figure things out. But also, I mean, I feel like that week 2 weeks ago, the first week without Mike Williams should have been an opportunity, especially since there was no Austin Ekeler. Now Austin Eckler's coming back. Keenan Allen's playing phenomenally. Josh Palmer is not letting anyone jump him on the depth chart. I believe Jalen Guyton is going to be making a return here in the next couple weeks. Not that he takes a lot of volume, but he still stretches the field. So there's not that much there for Quentin Johnston unless Keenan Allen gets hurt. But then if Keenan Allen or Austin Ekeler, God forbid, get hurt again, then, I mean, we're just talking about a Chargers offense that is down to the middle of the pack anyway. So, yeah, I do like that.
You have to make these moves before they happen. If QJ comes out and has a stinker, plays 35% of snaps or 40% of snaps and has 6 targets for 1 catch and 8 yards, then you can't even get that deal done. So if you like Rice and you're dubious about QJ, you make that deal before the game.
Definitely. And it'll just bring up a good point just real quick before we just move on to Sundays is it's okay to lose trades because at the end of the day, you've bet on yourself, you've bet on your own thoughts, and it's a good process to move away from a player you don't believe in. You don't have to roster people just because other people say that you should. So if you want to move on from Quentin Johnston, of course, no one here at Player Profiler is going to fault you for it, but no one should either, especially if you're making a move for another rookie wide receiver attached to a great offense like the Chiefs and Rashee Rice.
Can I ask you one more Thursday night take? You could just do it lightning fast.
Yeah, of course.
Do you think Russell Wilson's going to get benched in the next 3 weeks for Jared Stidham?
I don't know about next 3 weeks, but I do think that it will happen at this point in the season. I put together stashes every single week for the Player Profiler Twitter. This goes along with Theo's waiver wire thread and article. And I've had Jarrett Stidham on there for Superflex League since week 2 because he looked pretty good on the Raiders last week. And Sean Payton has way too much of an ego to let Russell Wilson continue to taint this team. So I do believe that they'll bring out Jarrett Stidham, if only to save face at some point.
Love that guy, Jarrett Stidham.
Jarrett Stidham. I mean, remember the preseason, his rookie preseason on the Patriots was busting out 80-yard runs. I mean, an electric football player. Yeah. Surprised he hasn't had a little bit more opportunity.
He was like, I remember there was a point where he was like QB 18 in Dynasty when it was speculated that he could get the job, you know,
Yep. Yeah, it's funny how things change. It's funny how things change.
That's why we love Dynasty.
Let's start talking about some week 6, but before we do that, we've got to hear from our sponsors over at Sleeper.
Hey, we're all starting new fantasy leagues all the time. And more often than not, where do we start our fantasy leagues at Player Profiler? On Sleeper. Because it's the best. You can imagine my excitement when I saw Sleeper rolled out Sleeper picks, baby. And game stacking is the path to positive returns with these pick'em games. Find that sneaky shootout and set most of the players to go over their projection for that week. Or you find a game going to get dragged into the mud and take every member of the passing game for less than their projections that week. And if you pick up to 8, that's how you 100x your payout on Sleeper. It's called the Hail Mary. So if you use promo code Underworld, you get a $100 instant deposit match. Check out Sleeper's terms and conditions for details. These Sleeper picks are live in over 25 states. Yeah, buddy.
Go sign up for Sleeper if you haven't. Don't know what you're doing. Best place to play fantasy football. Alan, how many leagues you got on Sleeper?
41 to be exact. But I also like their pick'em games. They have really good pick'em props over there. It's a really clean interface. So that's another reason to get over there.
Definitely. So Jason and Alan, we're back. We're talking about week 6. We're previewing it. The best way to start with the preview is talk about who's playing, who's not playing, injuries to keep an eye on before we give you our takes. And so I'm just going to quickly read through some did not participates, and then you can maybe fire back with some thoughts if you feel like it. But Sam LaPorta did not practice, and neither did Jahmyr Gibbs on the Lions, looking like both of those guys are trending towards not playing. Daniel Jones did not participate with a neck injury. There have been videos this week of Saquon Barkley taking snaps from Tyrod Taylor, so it is looking like Taylor will probably be getting the start this week. Bears running backs, Kahlil Herbert, Roschon Johnson, both did not participate. Could be a Deontay Foreman game. Tank Dell still not practicing as well with his concussion. For me, I want to see if John Mechie could maybe slot into that role. And then a couple players are out. Deshaun Watson and Treylon Burks are reported as out for their games as well. And just real quick, limited participants, players that have been out the past couple weeks that are looking like they'll be returning. Keontae Ingram, T. Higgins, Austin Ekeler, Jeff Wilson, and maybe even some Tyquan Thornton action. Lots of names thrown at you.
Yeah. See, I think you do a service here. See, a lot of people, they have their notifications turned on, but, they come late. There's a lot of them. People miss them. So you're really just parsing out like the fantasy relevant, important stuff. You're like a video notification for people. So I know like sometimes you're just reading the list and you're going through, you do this every day. It kind of seems routine, but you really are providing a nice service for people that watch the show.
Thank you. Yeah. I mean, I feel like it's honestly the most important thing to know. I mean, the practicing and everything is good. I try to limit it to the fantasy football relevant players, and I try to limit it to just did not participate. So a lot of times we see the limiteds these days.
I think
the guys are out there.
Yeah, I think a lot of fantasy football podcasts make the mistake of going too deep into like regular football. And again, nothing wrong with that. It's like I can get regular football in another podcast. When I'm watching a fantasy show, I want to see fantasy relevant. Like all I care about is how to set my lineup, what I'm missing, all that type of stuff. So yeah, the of those guys, I mean, you named the Chicago backfield. That's the one I wanted to zero in on. I couldn't believe that people were putting these massive bids on like Roschon and just leaving Deontay Foreman for free. Like fantasy football is played in like these very week-to-week short windows, and Deontay Foreman was good last year, right? He's been good ever since he's come back from the Achilles and had an opportunity. I was being a little more aggressive than I should on Foreman. He was actually one of my favorite plays this week in DFS against Minnesota. I love Foreman. I was shocked. Nah, not shocked. That's the wrong word. I was surprised when he's been a healthy and active, but it made sense because he was more playing the Kahlil Herbert's backup. He might have that backfield to himself this week, man. I think that he's going to end up being DFS chalk. If not, I'm certainly going to be on him.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great call, especially if Roschon Johnson doesn't end up clearing the concussion protocol. I mean, he's going to have a lot of volume against a Minnesota Vikings defense that hasn't really been able to stop much at all this season. So I like that a lot. So, guys, all those names I listed, make sure you keep track of them this weekend. Let's you hinted at something. You talked about the Bears. Mm-hmm. You talked about starting Deontay Foreman. Is he perhaps your must start, or do you have someone else? Yeah,
no, Deontay Foreman's a must start. Like, if he's sitting there in your Dynasty league and you've just been buried on your bench because you're like, I'm not going to cut this guy. I mean, I am forcing him into my lineup. Like, for example, you don't know if Saquon Barkley's going to play, right? So, and that's a Monday night game. I'm not waiting around for Saquon Barkley and then having to put like Matt Breida or like Paris Campbell in my lineup. I'm so feeling good about Deontay Foreman as a must start this week that I would start him and just be like, if Barkley plays, I missed out on Barkley's points. Like, I think Foreman I would rank him as a top 12 to 14 running back this week with the bye. So, and that, again, it's any running back could fail at any time, but Chicago with Justin Fields playing better, this is going to open it up for him. So he would definitely be my first must start. Also, in that same game, not that you have Alexander Mattison and benching him, but I feel like with the injury to Justin Jefferson, we're all trying to speculate which wide receiver is going to get the uptick in volume. Maybe they're just going to run the ball more. So I am confidently playing Alexander Mattison this week.
Okay. I'm a big Cam Akers stan, so I just for some reason I've never been able to move on from Cam Akers. So
playing both.
Doing both. Screw it. Yeah. I am my must start, and I'm going to stay within this game. I'm starting Jordan Addison. I think that a lot of people are questioning it this week, but this is a philosophy thing. There's a ton of players that this works with, but if you're rostering a player and the person in front of them gets injured and then you don't start them the next week, what are you doing? Why do you have them on your roster? This is exactly what you've been waiting for with Jordan Addison. This is his time, and it's against a terrible defense with no cornerbacks in the Chicago Bears. Kevin O'Connell said that they're going to press the gas pedal with Jordan Addison's usage this week. He said no pun intended. Pun was definitely intended there, but I'm definitely starting him. I saw a comment on yesterday's show, Jordan Addison's been limited with an ankle injury. I don't care about a limited with an ankle injury. When the head coach is saying they're going to increase their usage and fully letting him go, you've got to start Jordan Addison.
Yeah, Justin Jefferson hogged so many of the targets that there is now like so much opportunity for fantasy goodness with the rest of the Vikings. Mm-hmm. So whether it's Jordan Addison, yes, you're starting him. KJ Osborn, yes, you're starting him, right? I mean, he's more of like a blocking wide receiver, but he had, 9 targets last week? He's already shown that he could pop in fantasy. Any of the Minnesota Vikings that you have that you want to start? I said Madison, you say Cam Akers, fine. Like, whichever one. You might be wrong, and it could go somewhere else. It could be, what's that guy's name? Brandon Powell might even have a touchdown this week. But in this matchup, given that the ball hog is gone. Yep. I mean, I've been on like sports teams where our best player who averaged like 38 points a game just like sat out a game, and like everyone else got paid. Guys that were scoring like 6 points a game in basketball went up to like 14 points that game. So any Viking you want, you could sell me on that they're a must start this week.
Yeah, definitely. Let's move on to the sits then. Who are you sitting this week?
Elijah Moore, right?
Okay.
I don't. PJ Walker presumably is going to be the quarterback. Maybe it will be as bad as DTR last week. Maybe it won't. Walker's been in games. I don't even know if he's been fluttering back and forth between the ancillary leagues. So if you have Amari Cooper, Elijah Moore, any of the Browns pass catchers, David Njoku, break ties in favor of the other guy. So, for example, a lot of people are going to be sitting there looking, okay, I have Jacoby Myers or Amari Cooper. Jacoby Myers, right? Yeah, so any Browns pass catcher, given no Watson, would be, especially against the 49ers, right? I would sit all of my Browns, except if you're in a pinch, maybe with Jerome Ford as your only living running back right now.
Yeah, I love that call. I'm not starting any Brown right now, especially against the 49ers. For me, I think you've got to sit really all of the Commanders against the Falcons this week, except for maybe Brian. Well, actually, probably any of them, really. I mean, they're a very good rush defense, but I'll hone in specifically on Terry McLaurin. The Falcons have been very, very good against wide receiver ones. When they played the Panthers, Hayden Hurst was the leading receiver with only 40 yards. When they played the Lions, Amon-Ra St. Brown went off, but he's not a traditional number one. Josh Reynolds was completely shut down, didn't even have a catch. Romeo Doubs against the Falcons only had 2 catches. Calvin Ridley only had 2 catches for 30-something yards. Lucky he scored a touchdown. Nico Collins last week, only 30-something yards as well. Terry McLaurin, hasn't been doing that great this season, but still definitely not going to get right against the Falcons this week. Don't expect like Sam Howell to Jahan Dotson, Brian Robinson, really any of those Commanders. What do you think about that one?
Yeah, I mean, that makes a lot of sense. And sometimes, depending on the depth of your league, you're pushed into this. Like, I'm in leagues where I would kill to have Brian Robinson starting in my lineup just because I had Nick Chubb. I have, Jahmyr Gibbs, who's, it hasn't done anything. So I'm sitting there starting, like Tyler Algier because I went heavy wide receiver or something like that. So, yeah, I mean, everything depends on your league, but it's just in a neutral setup there. Yeah. Sure. I mean, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, excellent call. Excellent.
Thank you. Let's talk some upsets then. This isn't fantasy football, but in the NFL world, who is going to surprise people this weekend?
Oh, I love the Colts +4 on the road this week. I think that right now the Colts against the Jaguars, the Colts I think are a better just like team with Gardner Minshew right now. Anthony Richardson, I'm with you that he's going to the moon, and for fantasy football, nothing better. But this is, Josh Downs, for example, the rookie wide receiver on the Colts, 12 targets the last time in week 3 when Minshew was there. They're utilizing all of their different parts, and Jaguars are coming off this high 2-week trip where they just crushed it. They're coming back from a long trip in overseas in England. I think the Colts are set up right here, getting points. I know it's a divisional game and it's always tough, but that's why you see the Colts exploring for other players. They're in. They see this as a winnable division. This is my favorite bet of the week. It opened at 4. Let me just see. It might have gone up a little bit. No, it's still at 4. Anything over 3, I might even take the money line on the Colts to upset the Jaguars this week.
I like that call. I like that call a lot. And bringing up the 2 weeks in London, I think is a great way to look at it. I mean, they're going to be a little bit lagged. And divisional games, as we saw even last night, the Broncos made it at least close against the Chiefs. So divisional games, always something to watch. I like that call a lot. I've got 3 really quick ones. I'll just keep it brief. I've got maybe the Patriots over the Raiders looking to bounce back. I assume Bill Belichick has some tricks up his sleeve to stop Jimmy Garoppolo and Josh McDaniels. But who knows, right? Josh McDaniels could have the same exact thing for Bill Belichick.
Jason, did you see this Will Greer talk at all?
Yes, I did. Maybe
explain that to the people, what could happen here.
Yeah, so for the audience, there's been some recent developings that if Mac Jones isn't to go, or if they do move on from Mac Jones, it won't be Bailey Zappi. That there are some rumblings that they'll actually be turning to Will Greer, the former Cowboy backup. So could definitely be something to watch. This Patriots team in general is just a dumpster fire right now. Feel like, just getting right against Josh McDaniels and the Raiders seems like something that could happen. But, that's football.
Totally. Someone just offered me 2 second-round picks in a dynasty league for Mac Jones in a super flex. I feel like that's selling low, right? I mean,
it is.
Let's say Mac Jones gets benched for Will Greer, and I know you got to move along the show, but it seems like Mac Jones will have another opportunity at some point to be a starting quarterback in the NFL.
Definitely. I mean, we see Sam Darnold is still getting opportunities. And it's not like, I mean, Mac Jones hasn't had the fairest of shakes. He looked pretty good his rookie year, had Matt Patricia last year. And now we're just watching really the collapse of Bill Belichick and the Patriots in general with him. So I do think that he'll have another chance. I wouldn't sell that low, Alan. If you could maybe get see if you could get Desmond Ridder in a second or something like that.
I asked for James Cook and a second. I thought that the idea of not giving back a quarterback would be appealing to this guy. He rejected.
I felt like that. I think that was a fair counter, Alan. That was a good one. You should do fantasy football content for a living.
Good man. You're a good man. All right. So
what about Bears over Vikings? Staying within the division, a game we've talked about a couple times. The Vikings know Justin Jefferson. Justin Fields playing hot. I think they could keep things rolling. And then Titans, I think, match up really well against the Baltimore Ravens. I could be seeing a vintage Derrick Henry game this week, keeping things really close and disgusting. Lamar Jackson and the Ravens haven't really looked too fantastic. They only scored 10 points last week. I think that they could continue to stay slow, and the Titans could catch them sleeping.
Do you play Survivor Leagues? Are you in Survivor?
I should.
Oh my God. Survivor's the best game. For those who don't know, really quick, basically you pick one NFL team to win, no spread every week. And if you get it right, you move on to the next round. If you get it wrong, you're out. The only caveat is you can't pick the same team twice. So if you pick the Chiefs, you can never use the Chiefs again. So again, I'm in a Survivor, not dilemma this week, but I'm deciding whether to take the Dolphins, who are, big favorites in, who are they playing, Carolina? And then, or Buffalo, who are big favorites against the Giants. Now, they'll probably both win and move on, but which one of those two teams do you like? And which, if in Survivor, knowing that you can never use them again. So I guess really the question is, which one of those do you prefer to save?
I think I prefer to save the Bills.
That's where I landed also.
Yeah, I think I'd like to save the Bills just because I think they're a little bit more consistent. I know the Dolphins have had that ceiling, but they could also have a game where Tua throws a couple interceptions, no touchdowns, and they lose, surprisingly.
Or lose Tua.
Yeah. So go ahead and use them. I think that's smart.
Harry Snowman said the same thing. Yeah, and I landed on the Dolphins too. Now, at least I have someone to blame if I lose this week, guys. Harry and Jason.
Thank you. Just using me so you can have an excuse if it goes
next
wrong.
year. Hit me up if you want it. It's a $25 entry Survivor, and there's 3,000 people in the pool, so there's a nearly $80,000 prize.
Oh yeah, I'm definitely in. Sign me up. That sounds good.
Yep. Next year, hit me up.
Cool. And finally, Alan, before we answer some questions in the chat and everything, give us a hot take. It could be the season, could be the week. Just throw something hot out there for the airwaves.
Yeah, I thought this was hot. It sounds like it's going to be a little lukewarm, but a top 5 receiver this week is, don't worry about Justin Jefferson. It's KJ Osborn, who's going to have 10 catches this week, maybe 80 to 110 yards, somewhere in there, and a touchdown. I think KJ Osborn is going to be the best pickup. Now, again, he's a player that could have 0 the following week, but I think KJ Osborn is primed for a mega breakout, and I'm going to be using him in every DFS lineup. People are thinking him as a punt play. I'm thinking he could be a slate breaker this week.
Yeah, I like that call a lot. That is a very, very fun hot take. Thank you for that one. Let's answer a couple questions. I saw a lot of chat here, so thank you all for tuning in, guys. I appreciate you every single morning. Great to see you. How
about your hot take of the week?
My hot take for the week. Honestly, didn't even think of one. I was putting you on the pedestal, but let's go with, off the top of my head, let's go with Kyle Pitts, 150 yards and 2 touchdowns this week.
Yeah, that would make him go. You know what? Before you take questions, I asked Theo Greminger at PlayerProfiler this. Sam LaPorta is tight end what in Dynasty? Top ahead.
I'll go 4.
Okay, ready? I think tight end 1, and I'll explain why while you're fielding the questions. Okay. Who's tight end 1 in your opinion? Like Mark Andrews? Is that who you're going to say? Something like that?
Honestly, just for me, it's still going to be Travis Kelce.
Okay, so right now in Dynasty, if I say to you, okay, I have Travis Kelce. Here, take him. Give me Sam LaPorta. Do you do it?
Yeah. I would give Sam LaPorta for Kelce.
Okay, all right. Well, then you truly believe that. See, I think that is not what the Dynasty market would do. I think that
definitely.
Right. So I think that there is a case that doesn't matter what tight end you're talking about, that if you give that if you have Sam LaPorta, you will not give LaPorta away for that tight end. You said for Kelce you would. Age 34 in Dynasty.
I know.
Yep.
I'm a win now guy all the time, though. I don't like.
You can win now with LaPorta. You can win now with him.
Maybe, but I do think that things will get So I was the same LaPorta guy all offseason, but been touting him, and one of the reasons was Jameson Williams' suspension, the targets being away. But I do think that as they ramp up Jameson Williams, this passing attack will become a little bit more consolidated. I don't think he'll have those Gronk-esque games, but still around. I mean, definitely ahead of Dallas Goedert and probably ahead of Kyle Pitts. But I think probably.
Oh my God, yes.
But I think you still got to put him behind Mandrews, Kelsey, and Hawkinson for the time.
Listen, anyone in my leagues that has Sam LaPorta and where I have Andrews, come talk to me. I'll give you Andrews today for LaPorta.
I mean, it's not a bad call. You're attached. I mean, the Lions' offense is better than the Ravens' offense. I have to say that. So I don't mind that at all.
All right, I'm screwing up the format of your show.
No such thing. We wake and take. We just keep things going. Let's see. What would you trade DeAndre Swift for Josh Jacobs right now? We'll ask for Dynasty and redraft separately.
Yeah, I think these things are the same in this aspect. Is that of course you take Jacobs, right? I mean, DeAndre Swift is producing better right now, but which one of these guys would you feel better about moving forward for their career if they were out for the season? Right? Which one, like if they both had an injury that just put them out for the season, which guy would you want more next year? I think that's the way to think about it. And if the answer is Swift, which was just, traded for a 4th-round pick, it's so easy to see like Rashad Penny being the Eagles running back in December. There is no way I see any other running back being the Raiders workhorse anytime this year.
No, I think that's a great call. I'm with you on Jacobs. I mean, he was just the RB1 last year. So a very, very good running back, and things aren't really changing for him. He's starting to get hot, too. I mean, he's looking like Josh Jacobs of last season, at least starting to. So I like that for sure. Would you start Jonnu Smith, Chigo Okonkwo, or drop one of them for Tyler Conklin this week?
Yeah, start Jonnu, right? All he's done is produce. Okonkwo he shouldn't even be on your team unless it's a deep dynasty league. Other than that, like in redrafts, he's on the waiver wire, hasn't done anything. Conklin's fine, but you don't really trust Zach Wilson. I guess, are you really trusting Desmond Ridder? I mean, Jonnu's hot. He's producing. If you want Conklin over Jonnu, no problem. But Jonnu for me is the preferred target. It seems like Arthur Smith is dialing up stuff for him. Desmond Ridder trusts him. That's the guy. Yep,
definitely. I'm with you there. Last one, talked about D'Onta Foreman earlier in the show, but as Miles Sanders might be out again, or at least in Chuba Hubbard's usage is going up, would you do Hubbard or Foreman this week?
Yeah, I mean, I can't tell you with any confidence that one is going to be better with the other, but if this was my team, I'm starting D'Onta Foreman. He's fresh, hasn't been used, doesn't have all the dings and he hasn't been hit 50 times a game. So I'm going to take Foreman against the Vikings rather than take Hubbard, who, by the way, that guy Raheem Blackshear, he might get called up to play a few snaps as well, whereas Foreman probably has like 90% of the work to himself.
Yeah, and Blackshear's a good call, very sneaky guy. I would definitely be, if it comes out that Sanders isn't playing, I would definitely very quickly go snatch up Raheem Blackshear. He was a prolific receiving running back out of college, so I think that role could end up being continued to be used. I will say, if all circumstances are the same, if Hubbard is the 100% starter, if Foreman is 100% the starter, I would probably lean Hubbard.
That's fine.
Only for game script. Only for game script, right? Playing from behind against the Dolphins, getting some garbage time points more than likely. But it's a very good question. I don't think you could go wrong either way, Jamie.
They also give like Laviska Shenault some carries too. So you just have to be aware that he could steal a goal line. Whereas they get in close, it's going to be Foreman on the Bears.
Definitely.
Do you have birds? Do you have birds in your house?
I do. Yeah, is he coming through?
So do you have to like cover them at night and do that whole thing?
Yeah, I do the whole thing. And I'm telling you, he's very, very attached to me. So we're going on 40 minutes. If I go like a good 20 without seeing him, he will do what he's doing right now.
Nice. You got an obsessed bird. I love it.
I do. But we love our animals. Alan, this has been a fantastic episode. Thank you so much for joining me. Why don't you tell the people what you're working on, where they can find you?
Yeah, if you're on Twitter at Alan Seslowsky, and if you have SiriusXM Radio every Sunday at 9 a.m. Eastern Time, we're on SiriusXM Radio, just getting you ready for your fantasy drafts. Drafts, fantasy lineup a week ahead. So, and then RotoWire YouTube page. So at Alan Seslowsky, RotoWire YouTube, Sunday mornings, 9 a.m. SiriusXM Channel 87. Other than that, just hit me up anytime. I love talking to you people, talking fantasy football, and good luck the rest of the season. Don't give up, even if you're 1-4. Don't give up. I've won leagues before, coming back from 1-4 down.
Definitely happens every year that one of those last place teams end up in the playoffs after a nice little push. So don't give up. Audience, please go follow Alan, doing some great stuff. His Twitter handle, he already told you what it was, but it is down in the YouTube description. So go follow him over there. And I'll see you guys Monday. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll see you all Monday, 10 a.m. Eastern, here on the Player Profiler YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. You have a fantastic Friday, a wonderful weekend. Good luck on your matchups. Peace.
Hey, I want to take a moment to thank you for tuning in. It's important to me that all of our media be free. This is only possible because of you, allowing a true independent sports media enterprise to thrive unlike any other in the business. So please subscribe to the All In Package to continue to make all of this possible, to ensure that all of our stats, information, data, content is available to you, especially you, the people that get the site and get the show.